Welcome to episode 303 of the Center Ring Esports podcast presented by Alt. This is going to be the best episode ever because we have Yikes of the Week back in its rightful spot. And is Immortals Gaming Club the worst esports org to ever exist? Is the Overwatch League dead? All that and more will be answered on this episode of the Center Ring Esports podcast. But before we get to that, let me tell you about the show's sponsor, Alt Esports. Check them out, altesports.com. We teased it last time. Their Alt Crystal Skull. They have a neon and black hoodie. These things are fire. Literally will blind your teammates the next time you show up at a LAN. And whenever that may be, let's not speculate. But when you go back to a LAN, you will be the hottest dressed person, no doubt. 1,000+ crystals on each of these hoodies. They are incredible and machine washable. So that was a question I was wondering, Anuj. You can wash these hoodies. So
I'd still be nervous.
I guess if you're buying crystal hoodies, you're probably enough of a player to where you're not worried about that. But this is one where you don't let your wife wash. You tell her, honey, I'll handle the laundry this time. And then you wash it yourself, so no one's to blame. But check them out, altesports.com. Let them know the Center Ring sent you.
This is Sinatra, and you are listening to the Center Ring.
Okay, so let's start.
Hello, everybody. Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Center Ring, aka TCR, aka your favorite esports podcast presented by Alt. Episode 303. Is it 303?
I didn't change it.
I thought we did 303 last time. This is an episode around 300. This is 303. Okay. 303. We're professionals here. The time is 8:57 p.m. The date, January 31st, 2021. The last day of January. Check us out on Twitter at The Center Ring. Our website, tcr.gg's got some blog posts. More to come there as well. Along with our Discord link and everything can be found in the description on Twitter. If you're listening on iTunes or any of the such, go ahead and leave a review, comment, whatever you feel is necessary. We just like to read them. And all that fun stuff. My name is Tim. I'll be your captain for this journey into esports. And alongside me, as always, is my best friend, my brown friend, my good-looking friend wearing an Alt hoodie. No crystals on it, but still an Alt hoodie nonetheless. It's Anuj. What's up?
I've been waiting for this episode to come. It's been brewing. It's been happening in the background, and Valiant made it a little easier to bring it in the forefront. So this should be a fun one.
Yeah, it's been a while since we talked Overwatch League, and I hate to break it to our Overwatch League fans out there, might not be in the best light. I feel like the last several times we've talked about the Overwatch League has not been the best of news. Though, I will say this. You and I are pretty optimistic people. In general, I would think we are very... Everyone is so doom and gloom in esports. I think you and I kind of keep it level-headed. It might just be because we're old, we have kids, we've kind of lived a life to where and not everything is the end of the world. But I feel like you and I are pretty level-headed.
Well, that's not going to be saying much for this episode, I don't think.
Well, I mean, eventually, times change. Times change, Anuj.
We can read the writing on the wall pretty well, I think.
Yeah, no, and we'll get into that. We'll get into our reactions and the most recent news about the LA Valiant, not Valorant, Valiant. I will make that mistake 1,000 times this episode. I can promise you that. Basically packing up shop and moving over to China, and how that impacts the Overwatch League, and should it even be happening, right? Should Blizzard do some executive order to stop it? So we'll talk about that later in the show. Because I'm thinking about it, and I don't want to forget it next time. Next Sunday show is going to be bumped to Monday. So we've lasted one episode before we got off our normal scheduled track.
Okay, this is a national holiday, though.
This is true.
So it's acceptable. Super Bowl, for those of you that don't know, or for our non-American listeners, Super Bowl is next Sunday. Tim and I will be enjoying that, eating a lot of food, drinking some good drinks, and watching some football. And watching Tom Brady for the 10th time in a Super Bowl. So
Yep. And I'm like a pseudo Tampa fan, so I'm sure my family will be over and we'll be pretty excited to watch it. So that's next Sunday.
This is a sports podcast, Tim, because esports is a sport.
It is. Esports is a sport. So
I got to ask you about this because I know our listeners are probably curious too. How are you feeling about the whole Matthew Stafford situation?
I'm hurt. I think I've had enough time to think it over from when they announced it, right? But I get it. Like, it's the same feeling I had when Justin Verlander left the Tigers. It's like, I want no one more to get a ring now. Like, I obviously I wanted Stafford to get a ring while on Detroit, but now that like he's kind of moved on, it's like I want it even more because I get it. Like, I am a Detroit fan for life. I can't jump ship. I can't be traded. He has that option. I think the team realized it. It's like it's another new coach, another new GM, another coaching staff for him. He's on the tail end.
Any younger.
Yeah, like he's only got maybe 2-3 years left in the league of like, maybe longer, but I would say like 3 years of like prime time Stafford,
who hasn't like notoriously stayed healthy every year anyway. So like,
right.
I think,
and that's partially also
years,
because he just gets murdered with the O-line in Detroit. So
I gotta say, y'all got a freaking haul for him.
And
if you're gonna get rid of somebody,
yes,
and somebody you love dearly on your team, whether this is esports or not, if you get a haul for that guy, you feel a little bit better. I would assume.
It definitely helps. It definitely helps that I felt like, you know what? We kind of won. Like, Stafford's a GOAT, and I would love him to stay a Lions forever. But if you're going to get rid of him, 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and another, what I would still say, people say what they want about Goff, but I think he's
serviceable is the word.
Yes.
I would use.
Yeah. He's
definitely going to be there long enough for y'all to either suck and you'll get somebody new, or he'll prove his worth.
If you have to pick a quarterback, he wouldn't be last. Like, if
true.
If
we were at the playground,
yes, and
we were picking teams, he wouldn't be the last one picked.
Right. So, and he has the potential to shine. So, for all things considered, I'd say we came out pretty good.
What's worse, moving from LA to Detroit or moving from LA to China?
I'm gonna say China, Anuj. I'm gonna say China. You don't get Detroit pizza in China.
Depending on the part of China.
Depending on the part of Detroit.
Very true.
Both have equally corrupted levels of government, so it all works out. So let's get into Yikes of the Week. We had our emergency Yikes of the Week last time, so let's get into our real Yikes of the Week right now. Anuj, I will start with mine. This comes from the world of Valorant. And you will promise we will never talk about either one of these teams again, ever. But they will peak up in the Yikes of the Week. So there was a Valorant player called Reflect. Well, Nuge, he is now banned because he was caught hacking and cheating during a match against Dignitas, the female team, Dignitas. Fun fact about them that I learned while reading this article. It is the same female team for Dignitas that plays Valorant is the same team that plays CS.
That's actually pretty cool. I mean,
you probably don't see that.
It makes
often.
sense. It would make sense for me, especially for like a female team where there's not as many events as you're going to probably in both, and so that would be kind of badass to compete in both games. Like it,
Yeah.
that would be cool as a player.
Mix it up. Mix it up.
Yeah, you're not like stuck playing one the whole like all day every day. So
So the yikes here, though, honestly, is not the fact that this kid, this Reflect guy, even got caught hacking. That happens, right? It's just the world of esports and the world of sports. People cheat. Anuj, he was caught cheating in a scrimmage.
I went and saw the vid for this after you posted it on here, and it's funny because it pops up as that big like game discontinued cheater found,
Which I've never
you know?
seen. I guess that's normal in Valorant. Like if a cheater is found in the game, does it do that?
Yeah, I think if they're found like during your
During the match,
right?
like
Because
big
we've got
dramatic
notifications that a cheater was banned from a game or
Right.
something, and the game is kind of discredited at that point. But yeah, if they're found during the match, like it pops up this huge red screen, and the reactions were all over the place. Obviously, people were cracking up, and one person from his team said, "Oh well, he was on trial anyway. He wasn't a official, but." What a shitty thing to do. I mean, you're in a scrim. You're there to actually improve. So that is your actual only time to like try and get
Right.
better, right? Like if you're gonna cheat in officials, if you're
Make it
that
worth
would be
it.
the time to do it, right? But not not an opportunity where your team and the other team are both trying to improve. And I mean, it's just good. Like hopefully it's a lifetime ban in this situation. Like if you're willing to do it in a
You got
scrim, you're definitely
busted.
willing to do it in
Right.
officials.
You got busted for cheating during practice. Like,
Like, doesn't get any shittier than that. That's pretty low.
right,
That's
right.
pretty low. There's a reason it doesn't happen that often, right? Like, you don't hear about that happening because, again, I feel like if you were going to try and do it at that level, you're probably going to do it during an official match where it means something.
At least that I could be like, well, I get it. Like,
like it's happened, it wouldn't be the first time. This sounds like a first. Practice? Practice? This is where we should have the AI going through here, but yeah. That's
Yikes.
ridiculous.
Yikes.
Tim, I'm gonna
yours.
give us a smooth transition here. Okay, so my transition from this topic will lead us right into our next one for you, buddies. I'm gonna make this easy on you. Coming from Overwatch, this is not going to be discussed today beyond Yikes of the Week, but the Korean voice actor for Genji has mentioned that his lines haven't even started recording yet. No production on his lines, really hasn't set up like a given date, like upcoming in the next couple of weeks. Hasn't recorded his lines. And why is this a yikes, Tim? Well, everybody is sitting here waiting for Overwatch 2 to come out. And if you read the forums, look online, like people are anticipating it sooner rather than later. And if you're telling me you don't have some of the voice lines like in the game, I know you could say, oh, well, they can record those really fast. Yes, but everything is a process, right? Like it's not like Tim and I are putting the show together, a couple hours before the show. Like their stuff takes time. And the fact that it's not kind of in the final like touch-up stages and checking for errors, Q&A, alpha testing or beta testing that's available, it makes me think it's going to be a little while before we see this game.
Yeah, which is odd because you and I played it at BlizzCon a year ago, year and such ago, in 2018.
A year and a half, pretty much, yeah.
Right? 2019.
We also played Diablo 4, mind you, at that point, and that's not anywhere near close to being released from what I'm reading online as well.
Right. I don't understand because what little we played of Overwatch, now it could have been that's all they made, but it's like, it's Overwatch. They're not reinventing the wheel. So it's like, I would assume other than just making it look pretty, voice lines is like 60% of what else they need to do.
And let's be a little realistic with what we played. Like, I know we played one map, but it wasn't that drastically different. Like, it looked better, felt a little better. Like the character animations looked nicer, but it was virtually the same game we were playing. Like, I didn't feel like I was playing a whole new game. Now, I understand the single player part of this will take some time, but hopefully that's not where the delay is because you're, on the back end, you have issues that we're going to discuss here actually pretty soon. But, the league and the game itself feels like it needs this refresh sooner than later. And in typical Blizzard fashion, I mean, here we are also with, we just said it, Diablo 4 is like from what I'm hearing 2022, 2023 at the earliest. Like people are expecting that it could be another 2 years before we see that franchise kind of revived again after so long it
When
feels
is
like.
BlizzCon this year? February?
Yeah, it's
February?
not too far. I don't get why do they show this, like, why did they show us Overwatch 2 at that point? What was the purpose of bringing Diablo 4 to light then? Like you do a full what we would consider like a release trailer for these games, right? Like Diablo 4 had a huge like release type trailer and setup that they did at BlizzCon when we were there. Why do it that far in advance? Like stuff like that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, February 19th and 20th will be BlizzCon this year. And you hope like they at least give you some type of release date. Even though, like you said, release dates nowadays mean very little because look at Cyberpunk or things like that. Like they can always delay it. I think it's honestly though just to create the buzz, right? Because at least for example, like last BlizzCon when we were there, like Diablo and the Overwatch 2 section were like the largest sections there. And for a game like Overwatch, you almost have to have that hype because Overwatch, it's like it was already going on like 3 or 4 years old, and you had the diehard players and everything. But even then, a lot of people are like, "Hey, there needs to be something new. I can't constantly play King's Row for the thousandth time. Like I need something new, regardless of if it's coming. It's as long as like that mental thing. As long as it's over the hill, right? You can kind of suck it up, but you also have the backfire of this scenario where you're like, okay, you announced it, but where are these updates?
Yeah, like I wouldn't get any excitement at BlizzCon this year if they just showed me more of the game but didn't give me any sort of release date tied to it.
Yeah, yeah.
If they just showed me more like, hey, here's another map, check it out, like that wouldn't excite me at this point.
Well, I mean, at this point, just let people play what we played, right? Like, just for the sake of people having a feel for it, saying,
Yeah.
hey, this is what we had at BlizzCon.
That's a little nerve-wracking again if that's something like that is not available to the general public to try out yet. Makes me think that we're just farther off than we really thought we were this whole time.
Yeah. Yep. So I mean that's for Overwatch, the game itself. I don't know how relevant it will be though with the Overwatch League, because at this point the Overwatch League needs any good press at this point. Like in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks at BlizzCon, they almost like you would almost also hope that they show you a roadmap for how the Overwatch League is moving forward from an esports side of it. I really think they need to, and they did that when they first announced Overwatch and the Overwatch League at BlizzCon. Don't you remember? It was during the World Cup, and they made this huge spectacle over announcing the Overwatch League and giving you a roadmap and things like that. All this business savvy stuff that they love to do. They love slideshows, Anuj. They kind of need to redo that because I think for the casuals, even for like these owners who have millions of dollars involved, I have to assume at this point, confidence is low with the Overwatch League. I mean, it's already low in general from the outsiders' point of view, but even from the insiders. So, to set the stage here, what happened the other day, Immortals Gaming Club, the parent company of what was once formerly Optic LA, LA Valiant, still the parent company of LA Valiant, MIBR, and of course Immortals, they are the parent company behind them, announced that, what day was it? The 19th? The 29th? Was it the
29th?
29th. They announced that all players and staff have been dropped as they're planning on moving operations to China this year, which has always been a rumor. For the longest time has been a rumor. And they came out and said, no, 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 ownership is not moving to China. We're not selling to a Chinese team, blah, blah, blah. Well, I guess that's somewhat true. It's somewhat, if you kind of squint your eyes and tilt your head, it's kind of true. Because yes, they are still going to be ownership. However, they are moving to China. So all these players and staff found out pretty much the same day, the same time, we all found out that they no longer have jobs. They are getting dropped from the org and wished the best of luck.
And now, like, did they mention, because I didn't see this in the tweet, is this anything like COVID related to this?
I mean, they say it's COVID related, but I feel like that's almost like a scapegoat at this point.
100%. Like, COVID, you kind of want to believe that we're somewhat on the tail end, right? At least with the vaccination coming out. You would think that this would be really the last full year that we experience like COVID related issues,
Yeah.
right? Like you would think everybody's
For
vaccinated at
this
least
type
within
of
a year.
business, like I understand, like
But
if you're
it,
like a brick and mortar and like places like New York or California are still stopping people from going in.
yeah, that's a little different. I'm talking about just from the full year impact, right?
Right.
Like we really think this would be the last year that we have to hopefully talk about COVID-19. Like it's going to come up multiple times during this year, but you would think 2021 is really like the last year that we have to discuss it on a global basis. Like it shouldn't be a health crisis anymore after this year. And so that does seem very much like if that was the reasoning, that's like a very knee jerk reaction and short term thinking. Because what are you going to do next year? Like next year, let's say things are better, you're going to just release all your staff and players again from, now your Chinese team and then come back to LA. Like that's the goal then, and this is just like a 1 year. It just seems like a lot of work to do for 1 year, right? Rather than making it work. And that's the least of the issues I think really tied to this move is the short-term thinking. I mean, we can talk about how they effed over the players, the fan base. Like there's so many other issues or variables here that are coming into play, but the COVID thing seems a little short-sighted to me and almost just an excuse at this point.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. When I saw that on the little statement on Twitter, I was like, okay, I feel like you're just saying that because people can't really call you out for it because it's like, pandemic and everything. But we are 2-3 months. The season's set to start in April. Roster lock was on January 4th, I believe, for the Overwatch League. Blizzard said it on January 4th. You needed to not necessarily like, hey, after January 4th, you can't sign or trade players, but you have to have your minimum 7 on a roster. You have to have at least signed 7 players at a minimum. I believe it was January 4th, somewhere, early in the month. Well, now this to me, like it just goes to further show to me, like these teams, and Blizzard has no control over this league. Teams are dropping players. They're moving cities whenever they feel like it. Last season we had the Vancouver fiasco where the players are going to Korea. No, they're coming back. Then they're almost like borderline protesting playing with the team at that point, and the players were being treated horribly behind the scenes. And now this scenario where it's like, okay, Blizzard, you have dates set. You have January 4th as your set date. You have to have a minimum roster signed. And then LA is like, no, we're going to drop everyone. And I feel like at this point, Blizzard should be able to step in as like Papa Bear and being like, hold up, you cannot do this.
You don't think Blizzard was involved in this decision or the knowledge behind the decision?
And I'm sure they were, but I'm saying that's where they should have been more involved.
Okay, yeah, like
throughout the decision-making process of like, yo, do you realize like you can't do this right now?
Yeah, I believe they knew about it as well. Like I don't think this is coming as a surprise to Blizzard on January.
Well, and look, let's be realistic here. And this is without looking at the numbers. So maybe I could be wrong here, but I think it's a safe bet. And Blizzard probably knows this. Their numbers are probably much better with the Overwatch League in Korea and China than they are here. Like, I think we can finally look back and say maybe having 2 LA teams was a little overzealous. Now, I will always give Blizzard the benefit of the doubt that COVID hit them the hardest, and they also handled it the worst. Like, they had no plan B for when home and home games did not work out. Like, it was a scramble last season when COVID hit.
It took them a long time to figure out a plan B, let alone not have one.
Yeah, like it seemed like every other esport was kind of like, okay, well, these events are canceled, these teams are moving here, and we're moving on, right?
Yeah.
Whether it be online player or whatever. Overwatch leagues changed their dance and tone, 3 or 4 different times until the end of the year. So they handle it poorly and everything like that. And, maybe if COVID never hit, you wouldn't have had the Vancouver scenario, because that's half the reason they wanted to go home, right? Is because, hey, if we're going to be in this long lockdown, we might as well do it at home with family. So we wouldn't have dealt with that. We wouldn't be dealing with teams having to choose to be in China or the States or Korea, right? We wouldn't have to deal with that. We wouldn't have to deal with now this LA Valiant scenario where they're abandoning ship and moving operations into China. We wouldn't have to deal with that if it weren't for the pandemic, so I'll give Blizzard the benefit of the doubt. But that being said, this is a business, and you can't let the teams just kind of decide all, like, hey, we're just going to... I guess what bothers me about this the most is when the league was pitched, the one good thing about it was, hey, these players are going to have contracts. They're going to have protection. There was talks of the retirement, right? They were going to have retirement built up. They were going to have a place to live with team housing or apartments, things like that. It felt like Blizzard was definitely kind of going in the right direction of...
We praised them on that stuff.
Yeah, we did. And this seemed to be the exact opposite of all of that, to where it's like these players had their contract signed. They were ready to go. They were ready to play for the city, for the team. And then the team is like, nope, never mind. And it's not even like... I would be more willing to understand from Immortals Gaming Club's perspective, Anuj, if they were like, hey, COVID hit us hard and we just got to cut bait. We can't do this. We cannot afford to pay you guys for an entire season when we're not being able to sell tickets to events or anything like that. No merch at events, nothing. We can't afford to do it. So sorry, but we gotta cease operation on this front. But they're not doing that. They're moving it.
This screws over staff more than it does players, right? At least the better half of players will probably get onto other rosters and make their way onto a team. Although incredibly crappy situation for them, right? Because pretty much any team that they go on to, they're not going to be starting right away unless they are like amazingly better than the person that's playing that position currently. But even that's like kind of hard to imagine that it...
Well, because like we said already, like all teams have already made their starting locked.
5 plus 2, others that they can toss around in there. So, or whatever, 6. But the point is, these guys are going to have a really tough time finding good homes that they want to be in, right? They're going to probably just take what's offered to them from a player standpoint. From a staff standpoint, those positions are filled on other teams. Like your position of whatever you did, whether it was PR, it was HR, you were the GM, it doesn't matter. Like your position is filled with all the other orgs within Overwatch League, right? Like you can maybe you can use those skills, I'm sure, elsewhere. But if you were trying to stay invested in the league, if you're staff, you're not getting another job this year. Like you would have to wait for somebody to lose it or somebody to extend a hand and create another opening. But you're putting them in such a bad position, so close to the season, after a deadline has been issued by the league, right? That everybody is at least was trying to abide by for the most part. And then you come in and drop this now. Like this is something to me that should have been, probably was in the talks for a long time, because rumors have been also swirling for a little while. And they could have done this earlier. And it's a slap in the face to the players. It's a slap in the face to the staff. And surprise, surprise, like Immortals Gaming Club is the man in charge, right? Like that's just not a shocker at this point.
No, and I think if I was the other owners, I would I mean, unless this all benefits them in the long run, right? Like, I don't know whose side to take, like, who's taking whose side on this frontier, because you want to say it's also a slap in the face to the league. But when I say that, I don't mean to, like, because obviously Blizzard was involved with this, right? So obviously Blizzard saw some positive outcome to this as well to agree to it. So there's got to be something there from their front. But from another owner's perspective, it's like, well, dude, what's the point of having these deadlines and rules in place? Like, we're sitting here, Team A is following all the rules and treating the players right and paying them, while Team B is secretly working behind the scenes to cut them all 2 months before the season starts. Like, I think the Overwatch League has gotten away from Blizzard in the sense of they're panicking on what to do with it next. The teams are panicking on what to do next. And now it's just kind of this.
It's both ends though, Tim. Like, I don't think this is just like, oh, the league is out of hand. Like, it's hand in hand with where we've seen the game go, right?
Yeah.
And like the game's direction has kind of dictated in a way the league's direction in my mind. If the game was incredible and everybody was loving everything about the game and it was, it had that crazy worldwide audience, I don't think we would see any of these issues come about really from a league perspective. And so these are bad decisions being made by crappy management, and at the same time, that falls on Blizzard too for having a game that really hasn't been able to capture the player base that it needs, or the viewer base that it needs to make it feel feasible long term.
Like I said, I think in all practice it was a very cool, and we even said, like, we were fans of it. We liked the idea of the franchise, the city based and everything like that. It's just it's gotten away from them to some no fault of their own, but again, other leagues have been able to work around the pandemic at a much better rate than the Overwatch League,
including one of their own, the CDL. Like, it's one that we've praised over
blows
and over
my mind.
Like, they were in a tough spot. They had crappy servers that they were dealing with, but they found a way to put on a really good production for the fans. And so they're capable. We know that. Like, somebody there is capable of doing it, just maybe not the ones that are running with this side of the show.
So then, looking past Overwatch League, because that is what it is at this point, we're going to have to wait for the season to start and to see how it plays out. I think it's going to be a rinse and repeat of last year, where hype is very low.
Expectations for this are disastrously low.
Just
like,
finish.
So low. Like,
my expectations for the Overwatch League of News is just to finish.
Make it through 2021 and hope that 2022 brings you some of that Overwatch League or Overwatch 2 joy.
Yeah.
And maybe some sort of resurgence, but survive.
Like, when you have
the name of the game that survived this year.
When you have NA orgs in cities like New York playing in China and Korea, it's like their main fan base is sleeping when your games are going on. Unless you're some super hardcore player, you're just not going to care about it. Like, there's a reason we don't get hyped for Chinese baseball. It's like, it just doesn't work that way. So
it's still baseball. I just don't care.
Right. And so when now it's like, okay, so now it's like a full Korean roster. Okay, that's fine though, because they're playing in New York. That's fine. Oh, they're a full Korean roster playing in Korea, but they're called New York? Like, you're getting too far away. It's too far removed for me to get hyped. Right? Like, if Dallas
you're not alone in that feeling at all.
Yeah, like, if
I would say most fans agree with you on that.
If Dallas is playing in Korea at 3 a.m., I don't really feel like I'm watching a Dallas-based team, which was kind of the whole point of having geolocated teams, so you have that instant fandom and hype built in behind it. But that doesn't work when they're across the world.
200 IQ move by Blizzard moving to YouTube, so it's easier to access VODs for all the games you're going to miss.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong on that front. So looking past the Overwatch League, looking past that, we have to shed light on Immortals Gaming Club. I did not realize this, and I guess I knew it, but I just didn't notice it while we were doing the Timmies. is for the most or the best, worst org mismanagement. We had 2 of their teams on the list. We had MIBR and Optic LA, who I think was the ones who took it home. I think they were the winners.
They were.
So now, Anuj, you have Immortals Gaming Club, ownership of probably the 3 biggest collapse in esports, with MIBR, which at least is still somewhat a brand, I think. Sort of.
Sure. They're a brand. I mean, yeah, they're a brand.
They're a
you could say
brand.
that.
And then you have Optic LA, which is sold now. That's LA Thieves.
Hex is Optic.
Or I guess, yeah, now they're back to, yep. So
they've lost Optic altogether. Okay,
yeah,
so this is
don't
not
even
they
have
lost
it.
a team. They lost like a whole line of their business when we're talking about Optic.
And all you had to do was be cool with that one.
Yeah.
Like MIBR, the team started to suck. So that's, again, this is where I said earlier in the show, we're kind of positive thinkers, okay? I like to acknowledge that the Overwatch League has kind of sucked, but I also acknowledge that the pandemic hasn't helped. But I also acknowledge that you sucked at managing through it. Just like with Immortals Gaming. I acknowledge that, Optic fans were not in your corner when you bought out. But for that one, all you had to do was be cool about it. Let Hex run it, and that's it. That's all you had to do, was to swallow your pill of pride, let Hex run the operation side of Optic through Immortals Gaming Club, which is pretty much exactly what he's doing with NRG. He's co-CEO, but, that's more or less from the outside. I think that's what he's doing. That's all you had to do. And they somehow managed to just blow up one of the biggest brands in esports, which it's like, bro.
They brought that brand down to the bottom of the pit. And one sale brought that brand right back up to where it was before they obtained it.
Yeah.
And with MIBR, I don't agree with the sentiment that, the team started doing bad. They made a bad business decision in not building that team around Coldzera and letting go of other players that really were not at that peak performance level. Like, they made the mistake of going with the group of 4 and letting the best go rather than keeping the best and building around him with other young Brazilian talent. Now, fast forward like 2 years later, and you could see how much talent there was, right? Because like Furia and all these guys got created afterwards. Pain, the team that just won DreamHack Open, like that's all Brazilian squad. Team 1, like there's still enough young talent that they could have done something different with MIBR. But you're spot on. Like, they have managed to kill 2 iconic brands, right? MIBR is iconic because of the legacy that came attached to it, which you've wiped away now, right? Like Luminosity and all that. Like, nobody's thinking about SK. Nobody's thinking about MIBR. Optic Gaming deleted from your server, like gone. And now LA Valiant, what was there of that fan base? My guess.
In Overwatch, they were huge because they were one of the better teams. They had very likable players. And of course, being just an LA franchise, I think that comes with pretty high expectations. So yeah, I mean,
that's what I'm saying. What was left of that fan base to begin with, right? Is also, I'm assuming, fairly demoralized by this news. Like, nobody is going to be happy about this.
Yeah, I can't imagine if you're a fan of LA Valiant, you're like, oh, well, you know what, guys? Well, who knows? I say that, Anuj. Overwatch League fans are suckers. Like that, and I say that in the most polite way. They are the nicest people that get taken advantage of. Like, and we've seen it. That one chick at the Dallas homestand a couple years ago, the one who got mad because Dallas fans were booing LA Valiant. Like, do you remember her?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? She's like, it's just disrespectful to boo the opposing team. No, shut up. I'm getting mad just thinking about her. If you get mad because someone is booing the opposing team at a home game, like, sports ain't for you. Like, go join like a pottery class.
Karens are everywhere, Tim. Karens are everywhere. You can't do anything about them.
Oh my God. But my point is that there's probably some LA Valiant sucker out there where they're like, well, Immortals Gaming Club tried their hardest, and you know what? We just got to support them moving to China. No, you do not. This is the St. Louis Rams moving to LA. You just don't support the ownership after that one.
Yeah, except instead of LA, they moved to China.
Right.
Like, it's even harder, right? If they were moving across state to go practice in another location, because that's where Immortals is based, it wouldn't have been a big deal. You pick up and you've left divisions. I mean, you're not going to be competing at a time that your fans can watch. So, for all intents and purposes, we'll say that like that fan base has taken a major blow after today's news, right?
Yeah, because
And
there's not
now-
even talks of like, I guess they're keeping the LA branding for
Sure, that's
now.
fine. Yeah.
But
Sure.
again, that's what I was talking about before, where it's like it's silly that we have New York and Dallas teams playing in China and Korea, where it's like, let's just call it what it is, guys. Like, just let Korea and China have the majority of the Overwatch League teams. Like, half the players are from there anyways. Give America and EU like a couple, and just work with what you got for the league.
But these teams would love for somebody to put in an offer that maybe got them some of their money back. I doubt that there's any of that on the table for them. You know, even if Dallas or whoever wanted to sell their team off, be like, hey, you can rebrand this, have this as a Chinese or Korean team or whatever. It's yours. Pay me for these rights. You're going to get pennies to the dollar of what you spent
What do you think
your
that's going
initial
for?
investment. Nothing. I don't think anyone would make an offer. I really don't. Like
Like a true valuation. I'm not talking BS.
okay, so let's
business
just say they
valuations.
spent 25 million. Let's
Yeah.
use that as the baseline, right? 'Cause that's the number we heard, 20 to 25 million roughly. So assume that was that the initial buy-in number?
Sure.
It was high. I
somewhere
remember it being
around
a
there.
very high number.
20
So we'll go with 20. That might be off. Google it.
My brain is saying 12 million, but that might have been Call of Duty.
Yeah, I really don't. I
We'll
know
say
it was a high
25.
number. So let's say with 20 million for the sake of the conversation. I honestly think they would maybe get a $500K to $1 million offer. Maybe. Because you have to think you got to pay expenses for all your players.
Yeah.
You got to take care of housing. Like, that's money that they have to put in towards that. And who knows what kind of return you're going to get on this investment anymore. Unless you told me like the profit sharing and you opened up your books to me and let me see that this is what you're getting.
But where's the
sure.
what profit are you sharing?
There's sponsorship money, you know.
Okay,
like
yeah,
I mean,
maybe, I
there are
guess
sponsors and stuff
But
like
you know
that
what
that are
though? I've
involved.
even heard that those are getting like some of the sponsorships, like with Coca-Cola, like the league got nothing for like having Coca-Cola as a sponsor. Like they went with more, and this is all from like insider information, so I guess take it with a grain of salt. But I trust my sources, Anuj, as a newsman. Is like I've heard like the Coca-Cola deal for the Overwatch League was like almost next to no money. It was Blizzard agreeing for that because, and as we know, it just looks better to have like Coca-Cola as a sponsor, you know?
You can maybe attract somebody else that's willing to pay, seeing that
Oh,
Coke
wow,
is a sponsor.
Coca-Cola's involved with this. Well, then it must be something. So, I've heard that even some of the sponsorships through the league is not what you would expect like a normal league sponsor being.
I just really wish we could have an open, honest conversation with one of the league owners regarding. It's going to be so hard for them to not be positive, right? Because that's their job in
Of
that
course.
situation, is to spin this however you can to make it a positive. But I just got to feel like any of these ownership groups involved are highly regretting this decision.
I mean,
And
look, I get
that
that.
includes Immortals Gaming Club with all the crap that they've been through. Like, they obviously have to regret even being involved at this point.
Well, yeah, they were at least able to get out of the Call of Duty League. Like,
But why? Like, that's the one league that I think I would have loved to stay in, because that's a 10-year franchise that's not going anywhere,
yeah,
right? Like, getting out of Call of Duty League to me is a terrible idea, because that's the one league that I at least know, regardless of what game you put out, you don't have to put an anti-cheat in it, Tim, and it's still going to be the most popular freaking game played today.
you don't even have to market the Pro League.
You don't even have to have a league play. You don't even have to give the consumers what they're watching. You don't even have to do it. And this game's going to be around forever. and it's going to be popular forever. I mean, you think of Counter-Strike as a 20-year game, Call of Duty is right on its heels. It's it's not going anywhere. So to get out of Call of Duty League is a big L. And now you retain your Overwatch League spot. Like Immortals Gaming Club has to be the worst run esports org that has ever existed. Right. And you talk about peaks and valleys with them because they've had some incredibly high moments, like the acquisition of Optic Gaming. That was huge to be able to acquire Optic. And it was like, oh my God, like that's amazing. To get MIBR and to have that Brazilian squad, that iconic squad, a team that's won majors, come and sign with you and create a Brazilian like legacy around them. That was a huge peak for them. And what, getting into Overwatch League again at the time, we were all, like, hey, this is a big game. It's Blizzard. That was really the key thing
Yeah,
that
that was
people
the
said.
selling
It's
point.
Blizzard. It's Blizzard. It's gonna do well. It's Blizzard. And all three of them have turned into complete and utter disasters. Most of all, the Optic Gaming one, but this is all tied to management or mismanagement, I should say, from Immortals side. Like there is nothing that they have done right with any of their major acquisitions or plays that they've made. And at this point, like if I'm a player for any esport, Immortals is probably going to have to pay more than the next guy to get me to sign. Like that's just how I would look at it because they're betraying their players and staff in this situation. They couldn't care for an iconic, legendary team, and they completely demolished one of the most popular brands in esports. What's your selling tool? Like, what are you pitching to future investors? What are you pitching to your future, like, if I'm a brand, whether it's a gaming keyboard or a headset, like what is your pitch to them to say, oh, we're going to elevate your brand status? Like, I don't know what Immortals would pitch to anybody at this point. If you don't know about esports, maybe you get them, right? Like, sure, they look like a big name. You Google them, you'll find a lot of stuff on them. But if you have any knowledge whatsoever of esports, Immortals has done a fantastic job of destroying everything that they've touched at this point.
They did defeat Envy just now in the qualifiers 3-1. So,
it's funny that you say that because Valorant has probably been their highest point, right? And that's after letting go of a full roster.
They do have a
that
league
they had.
team. From what I understand, though, that's like their league team isn't, holding a league spot is something. But from what I've understand from my League of Legends friends is that it's not like they're not G2, they're not Cloud9. So.
And that's not enough to repair all the damage you've done in other areas, right? Like the league spot is big. It's good for you, like if you're trying to sell off your org, that's a valuable little thing to have in your pocket. But in terms of like brand awareness for what you've done outside of League of Legends, it's not good with any esport, like with any one of them. And I don't know how good they are in League, and maybe they suck, for all I know there too. But anything you've basically touched has been a disaster. And look, that Noah, I'm drawing a blank on his last name, but he is kind of like the head honcho there at Immortals, was touted as this young, brilliant mind, within esports. And I see like none
Noah
of that coming to
Winston.
Noah Winston, that's right. I see like all of that kind of backfiring right now because his name is the one that's being tossed around with a lot of the moves that have taken place, and he's getting a lot of the blame. And I just don't know how they come back from it. Like this has really got to be one of the worst situated orgs that I could think. I mean, even FaZe is running an amazing org, and they're being run by kids that are doing blow in the bathroom right before they make a business decision. Like I don't understand how this has gone so sour for them so quickly. And so in a span of 2 years, they have destroyed their organization.
Yeah. And like, And the sad thing is, Anuj, is that they probably will get some giant investor on the outside who doesn't look at it, right? And they say, oh, okay, you're doing well with these teams here, but what they're not looking at is the three brands that they completely ran into the ground, where all you had to do was put them on cruise control. That's all you had to do for MIBR, for Optic, and then Valiant, is like just put them on cruise control and just check in on the occasional maintenance that you have to do, and you would have been fine. You honestly, I think that would have been a better strategy than what they were doing now, because really, realistically, they've kind of forced their hands in all of this. You know, like we said with the Optic thing, you almost had to do it that way because you were so aggressive about keeping Optic and keeping Hex out of the scene that you just turned so many people against the brand that I'm not really sure how many people were really Optic LA fans. You know, like maybe people in LA, and it's like,
not by the time that it came like to where the league was announced. Like,
but
the
even
Optic
then,
brand
like
was
I think a
already
lot of people
shot at that point.
Like a lot of people that I knew were like, hey, I like Optic LA because I have a lot of Optic shirts. But if it comes down to it, I want
terrible thing for your fans to have to
Right.
rely on. Like, oh, I have a bunch of matching colored shit that you already threw out there, so
Yeah.
I'll stay a fan. You know, here's going to be the next announcement from Immortals Gaming. We're sorry to inform you, but we are taking a step back from Counter-Strike. We want to thank all the Brazilian fans and players during this tough time, and we will come back soon, you know, with some good news. And they're going to have to rebrand their whole CSGO division. It's like seriously what's going to be their next step. Like, they've messed up two Brazilian squads, the iconic one and then the backup one.
Yeah. Well,
right?
it's like you said, I think you're absolutely right. I don't think there's a way they can rebuild. The only thing that will save them with MIBR, the brand itself, is Brazilian fans are nuts. And I think as long as you have Brazil in it, like they're gonna worship it no matter what.
I think so many of them moved on to Furia and stuff like that.
Yeah,
though.
but even then, like look at Furia, even when they were kind of number 2 in the Brazil scene, were still huge, like when it came to viewership and things like that.
Yeah, and they're not going to be involved in many events. That's going to be the issue here.
True.
They're in some now, and they also, I know, are, you know, they own a spot, like the spot, right, in one of the leagues, which I don't know which league they're in. I'm drawing a blank right now.
They are in, I think in Flashpoint.
Flashpoint. So another maybe average business
Wait.
decision at best.
Aren't they in both? Weren't they the ones who got in
They
both?
are the ones that are in both, I think.
Now that I'm thinking off the top of my head, I think they're actually the ones that got in both somehow.
It's just this was the definition of a shit show, though.
Yeah.
Like, it's just I don't know how you recover from any of it. Like, it takes so much work to build your brand in this industry, and it's so easy to tear it down so quickly, and then for it to happen so quickly is just so surprising. Like, it's kind of mind-blowing that they were able to burn these bridges that quick with all these different fan bases.
Speaking of burning bridges, I'll say one last thing on the topic, and it's going back to Blizzard, to direct something towards Blizzard's direction here. Is now that this has happened, you're seeing a lot of the pro players who were either on the team or even, you know, out on the outskirts of Overwatch are now backing off to be content creators. They've announced that they're switching over to games like Valorant, or, you know, holding options for maybe Overwatch 2, or just taking a break this year. You know, the league starts in two months, and like Anuj said, some of these guys might get looked at for contract pickups, but some of them are probably thinking, well, I was kind of settled in LA or wherever I was at, and now that's kind of my life's turned upside down. So now Blizzard is looked at from outside pro players to think of, like, if you were a kid or anything like that, or on this, you know, the breach of going pro, if you're in like the Contenders League, you have people now looking at Blizzard and the Overwatch League thinking, what is the point of staying here, right? If what was part of the argument was player protection with contracts and things like that, and oh, well, it's the Overwatch League, it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon, at least. Might not be the most popular game, right? But the contracts are there. And, you know, you even have people like Mike Ruffell, owner of Envy, mentioned it when Valorant first came out, saying like, hey, for all you pro players quitting Overwatch League to focus on Valorant, just remember, you at least have guaranteed contracts in the Overwatch League. Like, not saying it's the smart decision, but, you know, you would rather be an 8th player with a guaranteed contract in Overwatch League than maybe trying to go pro in Valorant. But this kind of throws that whole line of thinking out the window. Like, if a team can drop their entire players and staff 2 months before, this is something that Blizzard, really, the league or Blizzard or whoever needs to come out with a statement and address, just saying, hey, this is what was going on in the background. We've been talking to Valiant and Immortals Gaming about this. This is why we approved of the change. Because right now it definitely looks like it's just LA Valiant decided to do this, and Blizzard's just kind of letting it happen. They need to have some type of address or press conference to explain to the fans and to the players, like, hey, don't worry, we know what we're doing, or we at least have a direction we're going in, because this encourages no one to go professional in Overwatch.
They're gonna have to come out and say something, because too many big names have said something, on this topic. Puckett, XQC, obviously, Slasher, like all these guys are publicly commenting, and it's just a matter of time before, Richard Lewis and all these guys like start pushing some content out around this and what's going on in Overwatch in general. So yeah, like the league, you would hope, would come out and make some sort of statement or give some clarity to the situation at the very least, right? You might not be able to remedy it, but you can at least give some sort of clarity around what's going on here. But from what we see, again, it looks pretty disastrous, and it's going to be hard to like turn the tides here. I just don't see how you do that.
They're going for the back-to-back best worst org mismanagement of the year.
I mean, this is an easy nomination. Fact.
Like, yeah, put it on the spreadsheet so we don't forget.
I'm gonna go ahead and do that now.
They have now
gotten early in the year to get on this list.
Now I've gotten it for Optic last year and probably LA this year. So congratulations, Immortals. If you're hanging your head low, just know that you are nominated for a prestigious Timmy Award come end of year. All right. So anything else on that? Anything else you'd like to add to that, or shall we get to e-news?
Let's do it. Let's get to e-news.
All right. Looking at some e-news here to wrap up the show. Just some quick hits. Virtus Pro beats Fnatic to win CS Summit 7. Jamie wins MVP. I think this is VP's like 3rd Summit win, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, this is that,
or 3rd tournament.
A couple events a year that Jamie really like comes out and looks like an absolute monster in the game, and is able to carry his team to a win. And he was able to do that. I mean, again, this guy's got some crazy talent. It's just you don't see it all the time. But like we said before, it's cool to see VP in the spotlight. So congrats and hats off to them beating some good competition. It's not like this was a lackluster tournament. They took out Fnatic in the finals.
Yeah, and correction, it's not their 3rd Summit win, it's their 3rd event win in recent history. So they won Flashpoint Season 2, the DreamHack Open in December, and now this. So 3. They're 3 for 3 in their recent events. So, I'm always wary of calling things too soon, especially this time of year with CS, but Virtus Pro is looking good. Now, again, I don't know how much stock you put into a Summit event, but they beat Fnatic at least. That's something. That's something. Twist. Excuse me. Twist ends up signing with FaZe Clan. Anuj, you put this in e-news. We've been talking about this for weeks, though.
we really have. I mean, again, we even talked about it, I think, with Ryan, where
and he said, no, G2.
It made sense for a handful of reasons, and I do think we'll come back to this pretty soon. You probably expect us guys to talk about this a little bit more in depth as the week goes on here. But I think it's an amazing signing for them to be able to land him. Now they have some work to do. They did drop KRB, or moved him to the bench, I guess you could say. So essentially dropping him. But They got a little bit more work to do. We'll get into that soon, but you can watch them this week. The new roster this week, Blast Pro Spring Series is kicking off. They're in the same group as Liquid, so the first matchup is a FaZe Liquid matchup.
No way.
And so that is their first game that they will play. Will be against his former team. So if you're looking for a fun game to watch later this week, they might even be early next week. But it's the first match in Group C, so that's what they're all in.
Okay, that's pretty awesome though. Pretty
Yeah.
awesome. I can't wait.
MIBR is in that group too, so you could have a Liquid MIBR matchup with Fallen playing against MIBR there.
I can't wait for the FaZe video to come out where Twist and Jarvis swap moms.
Soon.
coming soon to a FaZe YouTube near you. Hey, I forgot to mention it though. That eNews is now newly presented by Philly Esports. We've had them on the show a few times actually. Friend of the show, and they now sponsor eNews. You can check them out. PhillyEsports.net. They host online events every month, monthly online events. This month, and it ranges from Fortnite to Hearthstone to Call of Duty. This month's event is a 3v3 search and destroy tournament for Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Win cold hard cash. That is February 6th at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So get 2 of your buddies. You join in. Who knows? This could be the start of your professional gaming career. Or it could also be where you realize that it's just not for you. And then you go into podcasting.
One way or the other, you will learn something.
In one way, you will come out learning a little bit more about yourself. So that's PhillyEsports.net. One other thing with them is the Collegiate Aces series is starting up February 4th as well. So you can check that out as well for them with all PhillyEsports.net. Getting back to eNews here. One last thing for Counter-Strike Complexity. Correct me here. Officially releases OBO.
They still had his rights, right?
Okay,
So now
but
they've
he wasn't
officially
playing.
released him.
Like,
No, he wasn't playing.
He
He's
was
been off the
benched.
roster
Okay.
since he departed and left Europe a couple months back. Complexity's kind of been in a swing since then and really haven't found their footing. But OBO is going to get some serious offers. You know, he is a very young still and just starting his career. Complexity was his real first opportunity, I guess you could say, to be in the tier 1 scene. And he's fielding offers, I think, from anywhere, as far as I think that's what I read in his statement. But
why didn't it work out with Complexity?
You know, he wanted to leave Europe at the time and
Oh,
come
that's
back
right, that's
home.
right, that's
and
right.
so, I don't know much more beyond that. But now I think he said he's back open to going to Europe. So if I was Complexity, I'd be like, well, are you back open to joining the roster?
Like, what the hell, bro?
What's going on, dude?
Yeah, it's that's weird. That's weird. Maybe
Yeah.
Envy will kick off their Counter-Strike division again, and by picking him up and moving him to the States, which would actually make sense because he was also right down the street in Frisco and Dallas. So, not that they're looking at doing it, but if you had to, Envy, not a bad building block. Not a bad building block. In Valorant, we had the first qualifier, the open qualifier for the Champions Tour Challengers 1. Was over the week. As we mentioned, Immortals just defeated Envy in the finals for that one. Some notable teams that failed to qualify: 100 Thieves, Complexity, TSM, Cloud9, FaZe, all failed. Pittsburgh Knights, I think, also failed to qualify. Now, this isn't the end of the road for them, which is why we didn't stop down to fully talk about that. There's other qualifiers and things until then, but you know. There's that.
Let's think of this as what we just saw with the what was the first strike event.
Yeah.
There's multiple qualifiers taking place here, and you're not necessarily out if you don't make it the first time around. So
Yeah.
we'll get back to this as we get a little deeper into this event.
Right. Like if all of a sudden 100 Thieves is officially knocked out, then that's something to talk about.
Yeah.
Then we'll discuss. Other news here, for Call of Duty, League play will be released before the end of Season 1, which comes to a close February 24th. So still in Activision fashion, they're not giving you a date.
Yeah, they just said it'll be here before the end of season 1, and the
I love
season
it.
1 like timeline or roadmap is out. So we know we will be getting it in the coming month, which is late, but still like significantly earlier than we've seen in previous titles. So at least you'll have, a few good months there during season play, at least to jump into.
Better late than never.
Yeah.
Is what I always say. In League news here. I had to figure out which one this was. For League of Legends news, Liquid wins 5 games set over Cloud9 to win the LCS lock-in.
Perks and these guys are getting a little bit of heat online, as you can imagine. The huge signings for Cloud9, not getting that win. It would have been nice. It would have been a little icing for them, but we'll see when the real thing kicks off how they actually look.
I actually did pretty well in our League of Legends Fantasy League, Anuj, if you care to know that. I don't want to be fantasy guy telling you about my fantasy team here, but I'm going with the sound strategy for the League of Legends Fantasy League. I'm going with the sound strategy of if I recognize the player, I'm picking them. Because it's like every week.
Pick?
Yeah,
Okay.
It's like you pick your guys every week. So if I recognize the name, I'll pick them. If I don't recognize anyone in the select position, I'm just going to pick a Polish player.
Oh, yeah, that's fair enough.
That's,
I was going to say, how many positions do you recognize a name?
If they were in front of me, I could tell you, like, oh, the guy on G2, Reckless.
Yeah.
I recognized him, and he actually did pretty well for me this week.
Where do you recognize him from?
Mentioning him on the show.
What team was he on before G2?
Fnatic.
There you go. Okay,
I
you're
am
an
an
expert.
expert.
Dude. You're an
I
expert.
am an expert.
And
Anuj.
Kevin just lost his job again.
I am an expert. You cannot get past me. You cannot get past me. In Battle Royale news, Zayt, legendary player, comes out of retirement of 3 weeks.
Hey, look, you tell me 20 million's on the line in prize pool money, I might just play a game that I hate.
So he retired from Fortnite.
Like
3 weeks later, says, "Nah, I'll play again."
It was surprising to see him retire to begin with, in the sense that he was, he's considered if not the best, one of the best Fortnite players. So seeing him step away was surprising altogether. But with the way we've talked about it 100 times, with the way that esports side is run, you don't blame him. And then you tell me 20 million's on the line, I might just do this.
This is why we need to, as a society in esports, slow down on the word retirement. Let's pump the brakes on the word retirement.
Like, just say you're taking a break.
We overuse it. I think it sounds cool. Like, I think we like the way it sounds. Ooh, I am retiring from this game. Oh, I'm retiring from that. You're moving. Hey, I'm gonna focus on Valorant for now, professionally. You're not retiring from Counter-Strike. It's just, we're moving on. In other news, Rogue defeated NRG 2-0 in the Winter X Game Finals for Rocket League. Don't love it.
Sounds right off the tongue.
Don't love it. I don't like my esports with my X Games or Olympics. I know that's again, this is where we differ, Anuj, from being normal esports fans. Because I feel like a lot of people in esports would love esports at the Olympics or X Games. But I know you and I both are in the minority. I feel like, maybe we're not, but I feel like we're in the minority when we both say, like, don't like it. Should not be at the X Games.
I want an esports Olympics.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like,
no, I'm with you. I
want an esports Olympics, and I do not want esports in my X Games, because it, just like with Clayster and Crims, as they mentioned, it would be freaking weird.
Yeah.
To be there, if this was like in a LAN situation for them, to be there and see all of these other people around you and what they're doing.
It's almost even more awkward that it's not at a LAN situation. Like, I don't know if they were actually playing at the X Games in Aspen, Colorado, or if the players got to stay home. Like, to win an X Game medals while sitting on, like, your couch, while, like, some other dude is borderline breaking his neck to do a backflip, little awkward. So I don't like it. I don't like it. You can have them at the X Games, just don't give them an X Game medal. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to make it like a little side expo area of it, sure.
Like
But-
create something for them.
Yeah.
Like, give them a trophy, just not the actual
Right.
X Games medal.
Yeah, just
you
don't
know?
give them an actual X Games medal. Just a little odd. In other news here too, Juked founder Ben Goldhaber, if I said that correctly. We've had him on the show before too. Maybe we'll get him on again to talk about this. But he spoke out against Twitch's new kind of rule when it comes to embedded streams. So like if you watch on HLTV or Juked for that matter, the purple screen of death. So I've noticed this too. I guess I just always just thought it was, you know, it is what it is. But I guess it's even becoming an issue now where when you go watch an embedded stream, a 30-second purple screen will pop up saying, hey, we notice you're not watching this on Twitch. Click here to go to watch this on Twitch and experience the best Twitch way. Well, this happens for 30 seconds. It's unskippable. You can't block it with ad block or anything like that. And it happens every 15 minutes. So embedded stream people like Juked, where like, you know, that's all they do. Getting tired of it. So we'll see what happens. I know Twitch also announced that I think they're like making ads less prevalent, if I'm not mistaken, for partnered streamers and things like that. So maybe this is the beginning of a new Twitch where they're like, hey, maybe we should start caring about user experience, but
just not anybody else outside of the organizations, which, you know, that's kind of I kind of get what they're doing. And that's why that wouldn't be in like a yikes type scenario for me with the embedded
just
stream
let me
stuff.
skip it. Like every 15 minutes, just let me say, I acknowledge that I can do this and close it.
But why not just then, if it's bothering you, wouldn't you just go to Twitch's website and watch it?
I always go to Juked, Anuj. Always go to Juked.
So if that was happening nonstop, you would keep it on Juked at that point still?
No.
You wouldn't. Right?
You know what I've actually graduated to? I'm a Twitch on my TV kind of man now. So I got the Fire Stick. You know, I got the Amazon Fire Stick, and it's got Twitch on there. I'm a Twitch on my TV. Changed my life to watch it on the big screen.
Yeah, so I do that quite a bit when I'm watching like Hudson. So we have on Roku, there's a
Yeah.
Twitch app. And so like I'll throw it on there. I am honestly enjoying YouTube more than anything though. Because now as you know, and being a
VODs.
father of two, just being able to like pause or rewind something in the moment, right? Rather than going to a VOD, to me is like
Let me tell you what,
huge.
Anuj. It might take me 6 more months to get my priest from 51 to 60. But when I do, I will have all the knowledge of how to play a disc priest because I've watched every single YouTube video while feeding this kid. Like, I know everything there is to do. Practical use, my fingers have no clue what they're doing. But up in
we
here,
were joking about him yesterday. You just gotta face roll your keyboard with the disc priest because all of their abilities do something amazing.
it's a different world. So I just got to get to 60. But I do agree with you. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what Twitch is doing on that front. So if anything, they, like you said, they want you to go to their website to watch their stuff. So I don't know how much say other websites have in that, but
Like, or if they would care about anything else.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
Like,
right?
hey,
that's the
Twitch,
problem.
can you not do this so people come to my website instead of yours? I don't think that's like a good argument. So we'll see. We'll see how they handle it. But that will do it for this episode of the Centering Esports podcast presented by Alt. Thank you to Alt and Philly Esports for being sponsors of the show. We love you. Appreciate it. Love you, the listener. Whether or not you listened to the whole thing or skipped around, love you all the same. We will be back Wednesday night to record the show live on Twitch and or YouTube, whichever you prefer. You can always check it out on the podcast apps afterward as well. We'll talk about something. We might dive more into the Twist FaZe Clan signing. See how that might impact the CS scene and everything there. Unless something else comes up. then we'll talk about that instead. But that's to be decided. As always, follow us on Twitter at The Center Ring, and our Discord is in the description on said Twitter. Be a part of the conversation there. And yeah, that's all I got. So for Anuj, I'm Tim. Thanks for listening. Love you. We'll see ya.